Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before we get into it with our current guest, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Soph Occleshaw on the podcast. She's coming to us all the way from the UK. Most importantly, she is our current guest. Sophie, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for the invite.
Why don't you first off give us your backstory on what really inspired and motivated you to get in shape and how that led to you becoming a fitness pro?
Okay, well, I've always been a little active as a kid, I guess. So it was either after school sports or karate or whatever was going on. There was like a little group of girls. We used to do everything together that was sport related. So the actual focus on bodybuilding didn't really come until probably, I'm going to say around 2014, because I remember watching Ashley Coulter when she kept her title. It was her second Miss Olympia win, and that for me was just like, yo, this lady's got something. Like, I remember posting on Instagram, "What a woman," and it was like an ultimate fangirl moment when she liked the post, and it was like, oh my god. So yeah, that definitely sparked it. But I didn't really do anything about it until probably around 5 years in, probably around 2018 ish, because we were due to get married 2019. So I got a little more into it, got myself like a little PT and all that kind of business, and just completely fell in love with it. Fell in love with lifting heavy, growing muscle. Loved it completely. And then as soon as we got married, my husband was like, "Why don't you do it? Why don't you try and compete?" So that was the July of 2019. So I booked my first ever posing session with, do you know the IFBB pro Phoebe Hagen? Yeah, so I did my first ever session with her about a month later, and then decided, right, let's go for it. So I got myself a coach, and it was planned for the PCA Federation First Timers, which was due for like April of 2020. Obviously, that did not happen. COVID struck, so we postponed that one. So through until the October of last year was when we finally opened up, shows commenced, and I was able to do a show. And then that's it, we went back into lockdown. So I managed the show. It was a wonderful experience, and I'm now just under 3 weeks out from my second ever show.
That is awesome. And I mean, this entire process of being like in a prep, first of all, I got to ask, what is that like being in this prep now, having no gyms at all and doing all of this without a gym? Because I mean, that just seems so bizarre to me. And because the gyms aren't open for like 2 weeks. So you'd have maybe 1 week to work out, which you're not even going to work out really in your last week of prep anyway. So what has this all been like doing a prep without, a gym?
Mate, it's been bizarre. Like we're blessed in a sense that we have some home equipment. So like dumbbells, a barbell, a bench, a pull-up bar, some bands. That's about it. But you make do, you make it work. And I'm now with a different coach. She's absolutely phenomenal. So the home workouts, the intensity, yeah, all that's going to plan. And so far it's working. So fingers crossed it's enough. Like you said though, when the gyms reopen, that is going to be peak week for me. And I've already made the decision. I'm not chancing it. I'm not going. I'm not exposing myself to the risk of COVID or just injuring myself, man. Like, it's not worth it.
There is that sort of thing where you'd be like, oh my god, I just want to like go and lift some weights now. I don't care, I don't care how long I have till my show, but that is just insane how you've been able to do that. But when you were getting started in the sport, were there any myths or misconceptions that you had about it before you got started? Because I think with bodybuilding, if you're to talk to the general public, there's so many myths out there about the sport. Was there anything that you were concerned about, or was it one of those things where you just wanted to just take a full dive into it and just see what happens?
I swear when I was younger, I thought every bloke was on steroids. Like, that was one of the things, like, oh, he's big, he must be using steroids. That's like the only way you're going to get big. To be fair, some of the guys in the gym at the time were, fair enough. But for me as a chick, I think the main thing was like a lot of people felt very intimidated if they were in like the male area, because my gym's got a female only section, but I don't use it. It's got nothing in it. in comparison. It's so minimal. Like, that's the other thing. I
It's
think
got the
they
5-pound dumbbells and stuff like that. Yeah, yeah.
exactly. I swear they think like, oh, this is the female area, so all the stuff that's too light, let's put it in there. It's not the one. But yeah, apart from that, I think I was okay. I was shocked at how much food I should have been eating. That I will admit to.
Yeah, that is one of those things where people just do not understand. It's like you're gonna need to be able to eat more food, but you're also gonna be able to lose weight too. So I think if anyone ever advertised it like that, more people would want to really get into the lifestyle and stuff. Where they're like, "Are you kidding me? Like I can eat more food and I'm gonna lose weight? Like, sign me up for this." So yeah, that's that. I mean, there's just so many things with this lifestyle. I think if people really talked about it, they would be more into it. But I've always made the comparison that if you're to walk into a gym with 100 people, I mean, there's 100 different ways as to how those people gotten into shape. Whether it comes down to what their nutrition is, what their how many reps they do, what exercises they do. So many little things add up to that overall package that people end up seeing. What was that sort of like for you, sort of figuring out what worked best for your body? Because if you were to walk up to someone and say, hey, what'd you train for this body part, it looks amazing, 99% of the time what they worked is not going to work as good for you, and it's just so much trial and error on the individual person.
Yeah, definitely. Like I used to do more heavyweight and then rep range of like say 8 to 10 kind of thing. But that was more predominantly for legs because I love training legs. I love training quads, I love training heavy. When it came to upper body, that I would probably initially start with like 10 to 15, I think was a rep range. And my intensity wasn't as good as it was or as good as it is now. So I wasn't pushing to failure on many sets, nothing like that. There was no playing around with like tension or anything like that. So I have definitely progressed with that, and I think I've found my little niche. Plus, obviously, with me taking on board everything my coach recommends, I have seen benefits, and even cardio wise, like I'm definitely more trained for high intensity now than I was before. That's been a blessing.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned legs, and that's my trigger stuff right there because I'm 6'3", so I mean, anything legs and lower body, it's
Are
like,
you?
oh my god, I've always made the joke I could inject pure muscle into my legs and they wouldn't gain an ounce. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. Don't even get me started on calves. I could do 10,000 calf raises a day and they wouldn't even grow an ounce. I mean, it's a never ending.
Genetic
Oh my god,
end of.
the most genetic thing I've ever said. And if you see someone with nice calves walking in the gym, I always say, you know, they've never trained them a day in their life. 99% of the time. I mean, we've had like a handful of people that have actually been able to grow their calves, and I use their advice, but it's never worked for me. But on top of that, since we just did discuss genetics, I mean, I love talking genetics because so many people do not understand that. I mean, we hear this all the time because everyone's on social media. Oh my God, I want his arms, I want her abs, I want their back. And it's, oh my God, you do not understand how they got to that look. You do not understand how they maintain it. Some people are just genetic freaks where, I mean, they were born with a 12 pack basically, where you just like get out. I mean, it's just ridiculous. But whenever someone first gets started, they always have that one body part that really, really takes off that they don't have to train as much. And they have that one body part that just drags behind it. They have to train to oblivion. I mean, my legs were mine that I'd train to oblivion. My back was the one thing that took off for me just because I had jobs out throughout college of working in warehouses where you got a really nice back, you quit. But what were those body parts for you when you got started? One that really took off and then one that really dragged behind?
Oh my gosh, quads. Quads just love life. I think because like being thinking back to school, I would have done sprinting in athletics, basketball, netball, all that kind of jazz. So they were definitely trained for that. So yeah, getting into the gym, quads grew very nicely. To the point now where I have to remember with my posing to tilt my feet differently because otherwise it shows my quad sleep too much. Um, and the lagging part, I'm gonna guess it's still my shoulders, definitely. Like, yeah, they just don't care, I don't think.
Hey, you're like almost all the women that I've had on where the shoulders have struggled. So anytime I get a guest saying that their shoulders really
Really?
took off, I get them to tell everyone what their shoulder workout was. So
What did you do?
if you go for, oh, I tell them that too. I was like, I'm gonna get killed in the comments down below if I don't ask you like what'd you do for your shoulders because everyone's. But yeah, that's one thing. Yeah, that I think a lot of people struggle with. And another positive thing from having guests on the UK, I learned what netball was. I never knew what that was until I started having guests from the UK on this podcast. So they explained it to me. Where everyone, yeah, go and look up netball. It's actually a very fascinating sport, and I actually like it now. So everyone go and check that out, which is interesting. But yeah, and I mean, I love asking that question because so many people just have so many different body parts, and it really proves that not everyone is the same. unfortunately, because believe me, if I could go and have like Andrea Shaw, the current Miss Olympia, if I could go and have her arms, I would in a heartbeat. But unfortunately, that's just definitely not the case. But yeah, especially when you're getting into this lifestyle, though. I mean, people don't understand how much more of a mental journey this is than a physical journey. And they'll notice the physical changes and they'll be like, "Oh, Sophie, you look amazing." That's just so great. But they won't realize the mental changes that have taken place in you, which are 100 times more important than the physical changes. Because I've always made the comparison of, if you can go through a prep, I mean, you can accomplish anything really in this life. But what's this whole mental journey been like for you?
Oh man, I'm so glad you've mentioned that. Actually, I'm actually a mental health nurse. That's my profession. So mental health paramount, 100%. For me, it has 100% turned my life around. Like there's been dark times. We all have them, and we fall off the wagon. Whether it's with food, with your training, or your just generic routine. But I found that with bodybuilding, with this lifestyle, you have to be committed. You have to be disciplined. And yes, all right, people say I'm not always motivated. Motivation isn't going to be there all the time, is it? We can wake up one day and be like, oh my God, I just want like another hour. But you have to be disciplined. You have to go and be like, no, do your cardio, eat your food, get on with your day. There's no excuses. And you're only letting yourself down if you do. So for me, it's definitely been one of those things that's been like a complete blessing. And it's so transferable. You can use these skills throughout every aspect of your life, whether it's work, relationships, or whatever. Yeah, it's so universal.
Oh my god, yeah, and it's just, yeah, if just that mental stuff, yeah, it's the one thing that you can really take from the gym and use to impact your life in the overall sense. But on top of all this, I mean, we talked about this, and it's a myth and stereotype that I love to bust every single podcast because it's so important to me. Is it's gotten better the last 5 years due to Instagram, but there's still, unfortunately, a significant amount of women that have that fear that if they walk into the gym and they pick up one dumbbell, they're going to put on 50 pounds of muscle overnight. And God bless their souls for still believing that. But it's like, it's not going to happen to you. And if it does, I would be the first person to spend my entire life savings just to train with you once, because you have found the secret that everybody and their brother is looking for. I mean, you would be the first ever trillionaire. But did you ever have that fear when you were getting started? And even if you didn't, I mean, I bet you still hear that all the time, even to this day. How do you like to respond to that?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I personally didn't have that fear. Like, I'm with you. If that was possible, sign me up. Like, we'd all be on the Olympia stage by the end of this year. That'd be great. But it was other people's reactions. So for a lot of people, it's like, oh, are you going to get massive? Oh, are you going to get manly? Or oh, does that mean you're going to take steroids? Like, there's so many assumptions that people come up with just because you say you're a bodybuilder. They assume you mean you're going to be Arnold Schwarzenegger, and that's as far as it goes.
Which, I mean, give me Arnold Schwarzenegger's accent. No, I'm just kidding. I always make fun of Arnold for that. But yeah, no, he's awesome. And yeah, yeah, I totally agree with that, 100% as well. But I mean, on top of that, just the confidence boost that working out's given you. I mean, that's the one thing that I think impacts especially women a little bit more than it does men. And it's the one thing that you can take from the gym and use to impact every single aspect of your life. We talked about, the mental health side effects of this sport and how it can add some positivity, but just that confidence boost too. How has that confidence boost helped you in your life as well?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like to attribute too much to the physical aspects. Like, I appreciate that you shouldn't have to look at yourself and go, oh, I don't like that, or I wish this was that way.
Oh, I
Like,
mean, like the confidence boost where like a lot of people, like if they work out and stuff like that, they can helps them become maybe like more assertive and stuff like that, where like they're just like, oh, I get through this. Yeah, obviously, I mean, especially being a bodybuilder when you're in your off season, that's going to be a thing that's going to really mess with you. So that's what I mean by the confidence boost. Because yeah, trust me, if you're like only when you look good, you're like, oh yeah, now I can go out and like socialize with people and stuff like that. It's like you're gonna have a rough go at life, really.
hell yes. But yeah, you're so right. Like, building, just knowing that you can set yourself a goal to go into the gym, whether it's like, okay, so today I'm gonna do an extra rep on each set, whatever it is. If you think to yourself, like, yeah, I can achieve that, I'm gonna give that a go. And then you walk out and you're like, yeah, I did that. I'm proud of myself. I've ticked that box for the day. It's something that is so personal and so achievable. It just makes it so much more enjoyable.
Absolutely. the thing that fascinates me so much about the sport is sort of when it comes to the mental side of it too, is just that switch that you have to go on as soon as you enter a prep. Because I've always made the comparison that like 95% of the general public wouldn't even be able to get into the amount of shape that going into a prep requires, because you can't just go into a prep without having that work done. But I mean, once you go into that prep, everything just becomes so scientific, whether it comes down to your cardio, your nutrition, your workouts, your sleep. I mean, everything is just so down pat. What is that mental switch like for you when you turn that switch on and enter a prep, because it is just a whole different ball game?
I will be honest, I don't think it has an off switch. I've been very, just as an example, like growing up, I grew up with my dad. He was like my main caregiver, if you like. Mom was still around, but in the background 'cause they were separated. And he is very disciplined. He's very regimented. So everything was very structured. And I think because I had that, being told by a coach, you're doing this, it's been like, okay, cool. I'll just do as I'm told. So even when it's come to like, I've not had a proper improvement season with this new coach yet, and I'm so looking forward to it. But the last coach, when I had an off season, I didn't switch off. I just did as I was told. So I would have a cheat meal and eat whatever. But in the back of my mind, it was like, okay, so you can have this much, you can have this amount of protein, you need to hit this calorie target. It was still very structured, and that's just how I like to work. So I guess, yeah, I don't really flip that switch apart from thinking this is like proper countdown now, as opposed to okay, so I'm still in this like extra calorie situation. And yeah, all that really changes is like, okay, so you're gonna feel shitter. Your calories are gonna drop, your cardio is going up, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, mentality wise, I think that's just like
Oh, I mean, yeah, it's just I mean, anyone that tries to go into prep, I mean, more power to them. I've told you my story where I lasted about 2 weeks just in solidarity with a friend. And I was like, yeah, I gotta have my food and stuff. But that also leads me into the nutrition, because I mean, that's 80 to 90% of the changes that you're gonna see. And I mean, I still have friends who, God bless them, to this day, they think that they can go have like Burger King, 2 or 3 times a week and still stay in shape. And it's like, well, yeah, because we're 25, and call me in 10 years and see how that is working out for you. But what were some of the bigger nutritional changes that you personally made when you started to really take things seriously in the gym?
so back in the day, cheat meals would have been cheat meals. Like I would have had like a weekend's worth of food, not care because what was the point? There was no goal at that time. It was just a case of like me and my partner, we would just look forward to it. It would be a takeaway, it'd be a big thing, massive Dominoes, tub of Ben and Jerry's, job done. Whereas now, obviously, it's very much not. But I think even just little things like I don't remember the last time I had cow's milk. Simple things like that, like just to reduce your calories. So I'm on, well, when I do have it, almond milk. Just the little things that you don't even think about before getting into this type of thing. It's bizarre. Like, all right, I've always eaten chicken, but I wouldn't think twice about picking up chicken thigh over chicken breast before. Simple stuff, like it all adds up.
It really does get so specific with those things where it's like, yeah, it's another thing where you're just like, I would have never thought about those things in life. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because yeah, I mean, yeah, with almond milk and stuff like that, I didn't even know that that stuff existed really until this. I'm the most plain Jane ever when it comes to things, so it's, I'm one of those people where, I just gotta have ketchup on my hamburgers, I just a cheese pizza, I'm the most, just down pat person. So when it comes to like specific stuff, I'm like, what? Like what? So that I'm glad that I've had people on to explain that stuff to me and to try to enlighten my food, plethora. So, but it hasn't turned out as well as I hoped it would. But hey, we're working there. It's a slow progress. But also when it comes to that nutrition, I mean, especially with COVID, has there been any shortages around where you're at? Because I mean, here in the States, I live close to farm country, where I mean, it's been with meat, it's been struggling at times, but overall, it's fine now. Was there anything that you had to struggle with during COVID when it comes to food?
Obviously, my first thought was freaking toilet paper. That was hilarious.
Oh my
What
god.
was that about? Food wise, I did struggle with fresh meat. So chicken was an issue initially. Even the butchers were running low. So I ended up going to the butcher's suppliers, which was easier and cheaper. But then when the proper lockdown kicked in, they weren't even allowed to do that. I still even now I stock up my dry stores is rice bags upon rice, like cans of tuna, meat in the freezer. Like we're still doing it because it's Britain, and at the end of the day, people are idiots. So it's going to probably happen again.
Hey, she said it, not us, everyone. So all the British people don't be hating on me or hate me. No, I'm just kidding. But I looked out because I have a neighbor who's a big deer hunter. So he had, so much venison at his house where we just go over there and he just tosses some, just be like, oh, hey, there you go. So, that was our meat for the day. So we lucked out there with that for sure. But yeah, it's been fascinating with all these, and the toilet paper thing too. I laughed my butt off for that when I saw people. I was like, dude, worst case scenario, there's leaves out there for you. That's the worst case. I mean, it's like, it's just, yeah, it is absolutely ridiculous. And that made me lose my faith in humanity just a little bit, because I was like, okay, if we got into like a real, like an absolute pandemic where it was something that was like Ebola or something like that, it's like, yeah, we wouldn't stand a chance. Yeah, we'd be done. We'd be done for. So, hey, it's just, it's not something where, yeah, it doesn't really make you want to get up in the day. So yeah, but it's just so fascinating how, everyone's reacted to all this stuff. But going back into the bodybuilding lifestyle, I mean, so many people do not understand that this is the hardest thing for most of the athletes, and I would have never guessed it in a million years, is that for a lot of these athletes, posing is the hardest thing for them. It's harder than your working out. It's harder than your nutrition. I would have never guessed it in a million years. I like to compare it now to being a perfect driver, where you can be a great driver. You can never be a perfect driver. You can be a great poser. You can never be a perfect poser. It's always ever evolving. What has your experience with posing been like?
So hard. So hard. So the first show was with the federation called PCA. So they do the quarter turns. Um, and initially struggled to get my lats to flare. That was the most hilarious one. Um, I have a back injury from when I was like 11, where part of my spine is fused. So like 3 to 5 of my lumbar, it just doesn't move. So for me to do side poses, my flexibility is shocking. And even now with because this new federation for the next show is very similar to NPC for you guys. So my flexibility, I try so hard to just get that twist, because for me I mean, it's unnatural for anybody to hold those positions, but I've just got that added little awkwardness because, yeah, it means that my hips are kind of, instead of being straight, they're tilted forward and to the side. You know, like when they joke that one leg's longer than the other? Yeah, I'm there. So that definitely made it more of a struggle. And just holding the poses, holding your vacuum, like the whole combination, it's amazing that we can do it and multitask as much as possible. But I'm a rookie across the board in everything. So anything is progress for me at the minute. Like just holding the pose.
Absolutely. And I gotta say, when you mentioned flowing the lats, that's the number one thing, especially for women, that we've heard is the hardest thing. It's either one of those things where it takes you years to develop, or you're just one of those genetic freaks where you're sort of just blessed with being able to do that right off the bat. But out of your poses that you do, what is your favorite pose and what is your least favorite pose?
Oh, for me at the moment with this with the Two Bros MPC style, I definitely think that my strongest pose is my back shot. Um, just because I've managed to develop my glutes quite well, and I've got quite a decent hamstring tie-in at the minute. So fingers crossed that they agree. Um, and then yeah, the weak pose is obviously going to be my front pose in comparison. It's just I'm still finding my feet, literally, in terms of like how much of my leg to bend and how much of my weight to push out. And yeah, the flexibility for me is a killer, definitely.
For sure. And I mean, the only positive too with the back pose too is that, I mean, you can let your smile down a little bit. Most people do not understand that after these shows, your jaw muscle is probably going to be the most sore thing out of you, just because you have to be smiling the whole time. And I mean, it's another little thing that most people do not understand. But being that you have competed in a show already, what was that feeling like for you when you finally got to step on that stage and, show off all that hard work that you've worked months upon months on, especially since, the show that you were first going to do got canceled, and finally, after all this time of waiting through, the pandemic, you were finally able to achieve that dream and go up on that stage.
Yeah, you know what? It was phenomenal. Start to finish, the day was wonderful. Like so many wonderful people to meet. And it was, yeah, the atmosphere, the vibe was just so uplifting. Everyone was in the same boat. No one was bitchy. No one was nasty. Everyone was just so, yeah, we're in this together. This is fun. Let's go out and do this. And there was no hard feelings about anything. Like I didn't place. the girls that did looked absolutely phenomenal, and rightly so. They should have been where they were. So you just like accept that that's the outcome for the day, and it was wonderful. Managed to go out afterwards because it was between lockdowns, so it was phenomenal having like a belated date night more than anything.
Oh yeah. I mean, what was your go-to food to have after the show?
So my partner wanted to take me to a sushi place that him and his mom went to in Birmingham, and typical me, I ordered chicken, but it was lovely. It was absolutely lovely. Like, we love sushi, but I was just like, I really fancy teriyaki chicken. Like, that's what I want. So that's what we had. I have one of them, like, what are them? Is it a bento box where you have like those little different bits? We had a bento box, some sides. And then the next day we went to our favorite restaurant, a place called Tattoo. They do modern Chinese. It's phenomenal. Absolutely beautiful.
I was gonna say, so this may sound weird, but I had sushi for the first time about 2 months ago. Never
Do
had.
you love it?
I'm not gonna lie, I did not like it at all. No, no. I,
No.
I, I. Well, here's the thing. One of my friends knows that I like chicken a lot, so then she's like, "Just get some tuna. It's the chicken of the sea, basically." And I was like, okay. I like stuff that's cooked. I like stuff that's cooked. I'm gonna be honest. I like yeah. So she bet me $5 that I wouldn't even try it then because I took one look at it. And I was like no, and then she videoed me having it. And I almost threw up, and it was like yeah, it was bad.
Hey, you tried.
I'm an
You tried.
extremely picky eater though. That's the thing though. Like like yeah, it's if it's something that I don't like. So like yeah, if it's I mean I'll have I like Mexican food. It's pretty good except the spices. Do not give me that spicy stuff because that's a disaster waiting to happen. Indian food. Oh my god. That is just if I want to lose some weight though, I eat Indian food because I'm gonna lose it that next day on the toilet basically. So hey, if I ever go on a prep again, that's what I'm gonna do is just eat Indian food the whole time, and I'll be at 1% body fat then. But yeah, it's just yeah, just finding what that right amount of food too is one thing that people struggle with as well. But being able to have that balance too, where so many people feel that if they get off the wagon once, they're totally screwed themselves, and it's like no, you just tomorrow start fresh again, and it's never gonna it's never going to completely derail you. But especially in this journey, I mean, so many people do not understand that look that you present on stage is not going to be able to be attainable 24/7. That's I think another myth that so many people tend to believe, just because there's shows like Biggest Loser and whatnot where people go on and they lose hundreds of pounds, and some of them are able to keep off the weight. So I think people watch shows like that and they look at bodybuilding and they're just like, oh, those people must be able to be in shape all the time just because they work out even harder than those people on those shows. And but they just don't understand the way that you've manipulated your body going up into the shows, whether it comes down to your carbs, your water, all the other stuff that you have to do in this sport. That is just, yeah, when people look at it, they're just like, oh my God, I can't believe that they're not in shape 24/7. Because we've had instances where bodybuilders in their off season have gone to meet up with friends and they're like, oh, so you're done with bodybuilding now, huh? And it's like, oh no, I'm just in my off season. Like I don't, or one of them's like, oh, you didn't even look like you compete at all. And then the person's like, oh yeah, well it's off season. But what was that like for you, sort of realizing that, hey, that like in August, this look that I present on stage, it's not going to be sustainable. And do you think it's gotten easier for you your second go around to understand that and appreciate that?
Yeah, it's funny you say that because, like, so obviously, yeah, last March when the show was cancelled, I was lean, like I was in a good position, but my cardio had been like an hour on the stairmaster 7 days a week. It was brutal, and I was on poverty calories. So going into like an improvement season or off season, um, between like the March and the July, I think it was, that my calories were increased pretty substantially. I wasn't comfortable. I was not happy with how my body composition was at all. And it had gone past where I'd started with that coach. It was her method. And I told myself at the time, just do this show together, because I was going to stay loyal, and I was like, no, you know what, see it through, finish the prep, do the show, then move on. Sadly, I had already made the decision to move on back in like May of last year, but as I was saying, yeah, stay loyal, see it out. And then, I mean, I didn't get any comments from anybody about anything. I guess they were just thinking that I was enjoying some extra food and didn't really think much of it. But I I wasn't happy with my first timers package, and in my opinion, we should have started prep earlier than we did because of how much my weight had increased. So when I started with my new coach, which was the day after the show. Um, it was all set up. I was all ready to go. Um, I wasn't stage ready at that point. So we went into a maintenance phase, and then so that was like mid October. Had some chill time through to like Christmas. Christmas was my last off plan meal, and then it's been full steam ahead since. And the show's been rescheduled 3 times since. So I'm actually like half a stone lighter now than I was for the first show. So hopefully that means I took condition.
Oh, absolutely. So how have you been dealing with that mentally? Just the constant, shifting of the shows? Because for me, I mean, just even if it got delayed once, I'd be like, okay, this is just absolutely ridiculous.
It's so frustrating. I think it was supposed to be something like, say it was the 13th of March or whatever initially. And then they were like, oh, lockdown restrictions are being eased on the 29th of March, which is today. But then when they realized it was, yes, there being less restrictions, they could do an outside venue. But then the federation realized they had nowhere to do the tanning or the makeup or the hair. So they were like, no, we need to push it back again to the next stage of the review, which, well, that will be the 12th of April when the gym's open. So the show's now like on the 17th. And mentally, it's just been like, I think because it happened last year, I'm already in the mindset of, well, it's probably going to happen again. So deal with it. And that's all you can do. Like, I can't control it. None of us that are trying to compete in it have any control over the situation. So it's just a case of bite the bullet, keep going. They're doing everything they can to make it go ahead as early as possible. So much appreciated, guys, and fingers crossed.
Which, I mean, you're speaking of the tanning. I am one of the whitest people you'll ever meet in your entire life. So it would take me 10 layers. Yeah, we're both team, like ridiculous white. Like there's levels of white, and then there's like the ridiculous white where it's like, oh my god, you reflect the sun basically. Where if
Like milk bottle
oh,
white.
just it's literally. I mean, albino is the only step ahead of us, really. That's only whiter that it could go. But so I would need about 10 layers. So I would be one of the tanning company's best ever, customers. They would love me more than anything else, just because I would spend most of my money there. Which I mean, that the tanning process, that's a whole nother thing in and of itself that most people do not realize that is just so fascinating. But we've talked about it way too many times, and I don't want to get into it again because it just makes me feel terrible. Because I'm one of those people where I can never. I mean, the only tan that I can get is a farmer's tan, where, let's be honest, that's not a real tan. I mean, I either get burnt to an absolute crisp. I mean, even right now with the sun out at 60 degrees, I might be risking getting burnt out there. So it's just a never ending struggle for me. But I mean, one thing that people don't understand with these shows, I mean, as well too, is that I mean, there's just so much more of a camaraderie in the female side of the sport, I think, than it is the male side. How important is that camaraderie to you? Just knowing that, I mean, your fellow competitors, I mean, they all tend to genuinely care about each other.
Oh my God, it's beautiful. It is so lovely. Like, even like you mentioned earlier, social media is huge now, especially for communities. So yeah, in the bodybuilding community, the support, oh my gosh, through social media is phenomenal. Like, the team I'm with now is Team Elite Physique, who are based in America. So yeah, I follow a load of the girls that do that, some of the guys as well, and everyone, even though they're where you are, they're so supportive and so motivating, and it's just lovely. Like, the girls here, there's a girl who I've never met, and she came to the show that I did last year because she wants to compete this year. So she followed me and she was like, "Oh, I'm going to come and watch." I was like, "This is incredible." She even videoed it for me and sent me the video. It was like, it's stunning the amount of support you can get, and it's just really reassuring that people can bond over something that is so universal, but at the same time, we're apparently very niche as well. So
Yeah, which I mean, it has been getting bigger, as the years have gone on. So hopefully, 10, 15 years from now, who knows where it's going to be at. But I mean, on top of this, also, let's be honest, the most important thing to this lifestyle that I don't care, it's not talked about at all, and it needs to be talked about, is sleep. I don't care what anyone says. Sleep is the most important thing. Anyone that disagrees with me on that, I always tell them, pull an all-nighter and then go and try to work out, and then just let me know how that happens. Twice that happened in college, and both times I lasted about halfway through, and I just said, screw this. I'm not doing this anymore. But I mean, with sleep, it is just so. And I'm a night owl too, personally, myself. So I got up like literally 2 hours before I was supposed to have you on, because it's only noon right here, right now, where I'm talking to you, because we are 6 hours behind you. But oh, and first of all, can I just say, everyone? So I did not know that daylight savings time. Did you guys just have that yesterday?
yeah, I forgot. I
Yeah.
didn't even realize. I got up yesterday morning and was like, why am I so tired? But yeah, it
So
was
we
sleep.
had that like 3 weeks, or no, it was like 2 weeks ago we had it. And so I don't, that's weird how we do it like 2 weeks of but yeah, that's the one thing that messed me up even more, cuz like night owl, and I'm like, "Oh, wait, instead of it being 2 a.m., it's 3 a.m. now." It's like, "Oh my god, this is just yeah." So that's just a whole different conundrum, but how much sleep do you try to get, and what does your sleep schedule look like? Cuz I mean, we have some of those, I call them freaks, because they only need like 4 hours of sleep, and then they're good to go. And then we have other people where they got to have like 10 hours of sleep. So where do you fall on that spectrum? Is there anything that you like to do to sort of get that proper amount of sleep? Because I mean, just trying to work out without getting that proper amount of sleep is one of the hardest things you will ever do in this life.
For real. I mean, my partner will joke that I can live off like minimal sleep, and I have done so when it's come to it. Unfortunately, if I sleep like 4 hours, I'll still get up, I'll still go and do whatever and get it done. But my actual routine, like 8:30 at night, is my bedtime. I get up at 5 a.m. every day. Doesn't matter what day it is. That's it. So yeah, that's me in terms of that. And I am very I just get tired. I don't even need to know what the time is. I'm just like dropping on the sofa. It's ridiculous.
Are you basically addicted to caffeine though when you get into your prep?
I don't touch caffeine.
Oh my god.
No tea, no coffee, no pre workout, no
No
Sims,
tea? Are you even a British person at all?
right? Water.
Oh,
That's it. That's your lot.
I'm gonna be the most American thing ever, because I've had guests on who were like, "Oh, why don't you try tea?" I tried it once and I honestly just didn't understand. I didn't understand what all the fuss was. I was just like, "Oh, it's just hot water basically. It's like flavored a little bit." But yeah, I mean, I you can tell just by talking to me, if I ever had a cup of coffee, my head would blow up. So, I'm one of those people where I cannot really have stimulants, just because I'm already at level 10 by the time, I get up. So yep, yep, yep. So yeah, people are just like, "Oh my god, could you imagine Ryan?" I'm like, so for one of my baseball games, a person bought me a Red Bull just to see what it would be like. I actually did not enjoy it, because I just didn't like the taste of it, and it was just ugh. So yeah,
Yeah, they're not great.
but so I had a job. I was at UPS, and I worked in the mailroom. And one time I took a 5 hour energy and a Monster Energy drink at the same time. That was bad. I was off the walls, but hey, I was able to get all my work done, because I knew it was going to be a really really busy day. But I mean, another thing that I love to talk about is, it's the bane of my existence. It's my trigger word is cardio. I hate it more than life itself. And when I say cardio, I mean actual running. Like, I could walk on a treadmill and be absolutely fine, or like you said, like do stairs. But like when I'm talking about like running and stuff, which I mean, unfortunately, when you do become a bodybuilder, you do sort of sign a deal with the devil when it comes to doing cardio. What is your relationship with cardio like?
It's improved. Referencing back to that first prep, that was horrendous. Like an hour on the Stairmaster, 20 minutes of that was the high intensity, like running business. That was not fun. But just as a comparison, back then, 7 hours worth of cardio a week. I'm now 3 weeks out and I'm doing 2.5 hours worth of cardio a week. And it's lower intensity. So I was doing a little bit of HIIT a couple months back for like 20 minutes, 4 times a week. And now it's a case of like, I went for one run. I will admit I did a run, but it's too cold here and not fun. And I don't like the impact. Like your knees don't need that. So I went out the next day and bought a bike, little exercise bike. So that's here now. Just half hour of that bad boy, get my heart rate up. Job done. You.
Oh, you're talking about running outside. So literally a month ago now, it was negative 35 degrees here. So yeah, there's no way that you're gonna go for. Yeah, well, I'm in the coldest part of the United States, in Minnesota. Yeah, it gets other than Alaska. That's the only thing that can really top us. But it's like that's Alaska. But like it was so cold. So and we average getting that probably like once a year. We'll get temperatures that cold. Where it was so cold for a week, I couldn't even leave my house because the gasoline in my car had frozen solid. So you couldn't even start the car.
If. Oh my
Yeah.
god.
So I mean, hey, that's if it wasn't during the pandemic, that's a legit excuse to your boss where you're like, yeah, my car won't even start because it's frozen. My gas is frozen solid, so I can't come into work today. So hey, that's a good excuse as enough as I've heard. But yeah, that's a little Minnesota fact for you. So I'm looking outside right now in the 60-degree weather, and I'm just like, oh, thank God, please do not make. But knowing that it's Minnesota, we'll have at least one more winter storm. I mean, anytime we think it's over, the weather gods just like to remind us, hey, you ain't seen nothing yet. So I'm just, knocking on wood, hoping that, nothing like that happens. But on top of, all the things, whether it comes down to your cardio and all the other things, I mean, I always get a kick out of the people's reactions when you announce that you want to become a bodybuilder. And you sort of mentioned it briefly, but what was your family and friends' reaction like? Because, I mean, for so many people, like you said, it's a very niche society. So when you mentioned that you're going to become a bodybuilder, I mean, I think so many people are just like, oh, wow, that's interesting. But what was the overall reaction like with your friends and family?
Yeah, so well, obviously my husband was very supportive because he was the one that recommended it. My dad was very like, "What's that then?" And I think because I had to say like it's a bikini fitness competition, I didn't want to use the word bodybuilding for him to envision like the big blokes. So I think he thought more of like a beauty pageant, which I guess traditionally, yeah, fair play.
It's a beauty pageant with muscles. Let's be completely honest. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, he was very like, yeah, go for it, babe, do your thing, get on with it, standard. My mom apparently, I don't really recall this, but my mom apparently was like, does that mean you're gonna take steroids? Like really concerned, really worried about loads of stuff. Does that mean you're not gonna eat anything and all that kind of business? Friends wise, I don't think they were that surprised. Like those that know me, it's been a case of like, oh yeah, okay. Something else that Soph's got control over is now her diet as well as everything else. So yeah, for that that was just really supportive. There's been no negativity. There's been a lot more questions and people being intrigued, which is nice, especially through work. You get a lot of comments.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and on top of that too, I always make the call of like, let's be honest, you're not the average looking woman when it comes to, especially the way that you look now in your prep. You know, luckily now you are in the UK where it still is, not the, not, summer weather, so you can still bundle up a little bit. But what has that sort of been like for you, especially in summer weather, where I mean, you are, not gonna have to wear as much clothes, and you do stick out. And I sort of like to make the comparison, like you sort of become like a mini celebrity basically, where as soon as you go out, I mean, you just draw people's attention because it's human nature. Whenever you see something that's, not what you think of as normal, really, you're just like, oh wow, that's fascinating. What has that reaction been like for you? Is it something that it's taken you a while to adjust to, or is it something that you've, just really just sort of went along with? What's this whole journey been like for you when it comes to the attention that this sport does tend to give people?
If I get that, people need to start telling me because I would love that attention. I'd love some recognition if I've made some progress. But I think the only way that I really get that kind of reinforcement is at the gym with people that see the transition. Like, you know what? I don't remember the last time I didn't wear like 3 layers. I'm so cold at the minute. It's ridiculous. So this summer, hopefully, will be different, and I might actually get to do that. But yeah, I've not. There's been a few comments on holiday that I can remember. Um, that was polite and very complimentary. Now that you've made me think about it, and yeah, it just makes you feel like thank you for noticing. That's really cool.
Oh my god, yeah, I can remember when I was in college, I used to be, in more shape than I am now just because with this podcast and with my work, I still work out 3 to 4 times a week, but yeah, I can just remember having the drunk girls come up and, like, wanting to feel my arms and stuff like that, and I always tell them, "Let's be honest, it was the college years back then, so I'd pump it up a little bit for them." The college years Ryan is a little bit different than, the 26-year-old Ryan, so, that's a whole different story for a whole different podcast, but yeah, just that attention that you get, it's just fascinating, and some people I think really take it in stride, and other people are just like, "Oh, why are you, like, that interested in me?" and stuff, but it's great to really find that balance. But two of the questions that I love to ask before we wrap things up here, I mean, for the first one, if someone were to walk up to you and say, Sophie, we made the decision, you can change one thing about the sport of bodybuilding and everyone will go along with it, what would be one thing that you'd like to see changed?
Oh man. Uh, the first thing that comes to mind is for obviously the top dogs, the difference in pay, male, female, and category wise. Like if you put what Big Ramy got against um
Andrea Shaw. Yeah.
anyone, even just like even Chris in the classic, in comparison, he would have got like what, a few thousand grand less maybe. And then the 2-on-2 and everything, like it just doesn't. Yes, I appreciate you've got more risk and health, longevity is greatly affected for the Mr. Olympia. Fair play, you need a lot of money for a lot of substances. Um, but yeah, at the same time, it is just a bit of a shame that even everyone's putting in the effort and it's not just a sexist thing. It's a category thing that everyone gets different pay.
Well, absolutely, and even though the women aren't gonna look like a Mr. Olympia, I mean, they still work just as hard, if not harder than the men, just because their bodies aren't designed to look like a Mr. Olympia, so it's just yeah, I've never got that as well, and people don't understand that this is the one sport where you're gonna spend more money than you're gonna earn, no matter what, for a lot of times, unless you're, like, one of the top 10% or the 1%, I should say, bodybuilders, you're not gonna make money, so that's just first of all, if I could invent a business model like this where, I would create a sport and then people would pay me to be in the sport and then I ended up making I mean, it's like, first of all, those people that invented this sport are geniuses, but, they gotta shell out a little bit more than money because yeah, it is ridiculous. But on the extreme, I always tell people it's like, but also on the fact, don't make it where like it's like a $10 million prize for like everyone because then I couldn't imagine the health risk that people would go through. Like if you did a show, it's like it's gonna be $10 million for the winner or whatever like that. It's like, yeah, that's not gonna be healthy. But so I do get that and I do get that, but there does need to be a thing where it's like these people should be able to just have to do this because this is a lifestyle and it's a hard enough job in enough of itself that you shouldn't really have to have another one if you're one of the really good bodybuilders, which some people are able to afford it, but then but they should make it, generally a lot more accessible, which is something that I couldn't agree with more. And then lastly, so if we were to talk to you a year from today, where would you like to be at in your bodybuilding? Where would you like to just be at in your overall life? What are some goals that you'd like to have achieved if we were to talk to you a year from today?
Okay, so I do have a plan. I've got my little 5-year plan in my head. So this year was always designed to be the NPC year. So last year was supposed to be the PCA one. This year was supposed to be two bros, and that is going to be the plan. So at the minute, I've got the show in a couple of weeks, and then I plan to do the natural classics. So obviously all natural athletes, which are in like November of this year. So that still remains the plan. And then after that, all being well, we will be in our first home. We've just in the process of a mortgage. And if everything falls into place, ideally this time next year, I'll have done my competing season for the time being, and it may well be time to try for a family. And then I'm thinking, if that's the case, I'm coming back as masters.
Yeah, that is awesome. And hey, being in Nottingham, if the mortgage falls through, you can always rob the bank. Just pull a full Robin Hood. There's always that. No, trust me, everyone. When I asked her what part of the UK she's from, and she said Nottingham, my heart skipped a beat a little bit, and I was like, wait, the Nottingham, like actually like Robin Hood and stuff like that. So yeah, that was a whole huge deal for me. I've had guests from so many parts of the UK that where I'm a geography buff anyway. So if you tell me any part of the UK or any part of most of these countries, I know what they're talking about. Like I had a Norwegian guest, and they're like, oh, I'm in Elsa, and I was like, oh, the town Elsa, like up in northern Norway, and they're like, how'd you know that? And I was like, I'm weird like that, where like I know that kind of stuff. But yeah, that is just so awesome. Is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to before we wrap things up?
Oh, there's so many people I could think of, but I'm gonna shout out to my husband for being the supportive person that he is. I don't think he's listening. Um, and my brand new coach, who since October last year has been phenomenal. Her name is Sam Catlin. She's one of the Team Elite Physique coaches. So she's completely reinvented my body composition, and I couldn't be more pleased. So I'm excited for what this season has to hold. And yeah, we'll see what happens in a few weeks.
I've always told everyone the unsung heroes of this podcast are the significant others because they put up with so much more than we could ever imagine, especially going through preps. So yeah,
I'm a monster. I'm so sorry.
hey, it's all worth it in the end, really. And but can I just say how great it was that he was the one that encouraged you to do this? Because we've heard other times where it's the other way around, but it's yeah that you had that is just so amazing, and to have that family support, it really does make the difference. And the last question that I love to ask the health and fitness guests is if someone were to walk up to you and say, hey, I really want to get in shape, I really want to make some changes in my life, what would be the best piece of advice that you could recommend for them? Because for so many people, and let's do an ideal situation when the gyms are open back up. So let's have them ask you this in like 2 or 3 weeks, because obviously it's going to be a different answer now than it is going to be then. But in an ideal world, what would you like to recommend for them? Because so many people, they don't understand, like what we're talking about with this whole podcast, is that everyone's individually built. I mean, not one program is going to work for every single person, but for a lot of people, I just think just taking that first step into the gym is going to make your life so much easier.
For real. I think just making that decision and sticking to it. Like if you think to yourself, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. If you actually want to do it, do it. Like nothing changes if nothing changes. The amount of people that are like, oh yeah, I want to try this, I want to try that, but then they don't follow it through. my advice, make that decision. If you want it hard enough, stick to it and you're going to achieve it. But you need that discipline.
Oh, 100%. And that's one thing that you really need to be prepared for before you get the sport. And then also, I have some of my buddies who, they're those weekend warrior guys where, they'll go and they'll work out 3 hours a day for like a week and then they'll quit and they'll just be like, yeah, yeah, I'm so sore. And I was like, yeah, no, duh, idiot, because you went and you worked out, so you just got to take your time too. Just don't go full balls to the wall, the minute you walk in, just take your time. It's going to be a process. And like I've said with this journey, I mean, this is the one lifestyle where people my age are not going to want to get into it because everyone wants everything now and they want it yesterday, where it's like, yeah, good luck with that in this lifestyle where it's, but again, it just comes with the territory. But again, we cannot think.
Enjoy the process, enjoy it.
Oh yeah, you have to. And I mean, if you don't, I've had some guests on here that are really like, I hate the training. I just love going up on that stage. And it's like, okay, you poor thing. Like that is just ridiculous. But again, you guys, we cannot thank Sophie enough for coming on and sharing her story. And this will be up right after her show is done. So we'll have a result probably right on after this. So again, everyone, go and give her a follow. I highly recommend it. And buyer beware, you will get inspired to, get off the couch and stop eating those Twinkies and get in shape. But again, you guys, this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing out. And Sophie, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
It's been awesome, man. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Absolutely, more than happy to help out others. Get the word out. And again, thank you so much. And this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing out. Have a great day, everyone.